Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to a special CBS News Colorado Broncos report. I'm Michael Spencer.
And I'm Justin Adams. March 8th is going to be a day that Broncos fans are going to remember forever.
No doubt about that. It started with one quarterback deciding to stay put in Green Bay, and then just hours later, a blockbuster deal as general manager George Paton traded for Seattle Seahawks quarterback Russell Wilson. After being drafted by Seattle 10 years ago, the 33-year-old and Super Bowl 48 champion, not that Broncos country needs me to remind them of that, is now on his way to the Mile High City.
Yeah, now here's what both teams are getting in the deal, and it's a lot, okay? Broncos get, obviously, Russell Wilson and, of course, a fourth-round pick. Seattle gets a lot, okay? They get quarterback Drew Lock, tight end Noah Fant, and defensive tackle Shelby Harris.
And that's not all. The Seahawks also getting a slew of draft picks from Denver, including 2 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a 5th-round pick.
Yeah, a crazy day that will live in Broncos history. We got some former players on here ready to join us to talk about the deal. It's going to be really cool.
Let's go to Nick Ferguson right now. Nick joining us via Zoom. Nick, always appreciate your insight on stuff like this. Your reaction to today's news?
Celebrate good times. Come on. That's the best way I can put it, guys, because let's be totally honest. The quarterback position has been something that we've been talking about for the past 2 years. Aaron Rodgers' name has been mentioned. We were talking about maybe Deshaun Watson and also Russell Wilson. But for George Paton to pull this off, how spectacular is he?
So what does it mean? Obviously, you look at the Broncos offense. I think everybody's talking about this team, but when you look at where they are in the division, I mean, you still have Patrick Mahomes, you still have Justin Herbert, obviously Derek Carr. Where does, Russell Wilson now factor in the division?
Now, this puts the Broncos from being, the bottom of the division to now being maybe 1 or 2. And right now, I'm only going to put them at 2. Because I'm looking for the Broncos now that they have their quarterback. And like you said, Justin, they gave up a lot to get him. Now it's about going out in free agency, which starts Sunday, trying to get some veteran guys. And there are a couple of guys I have in mind. If the Broncos could pull this off, now they go from being number 2 to being number 1 in AFC West.
Hey, Nick, you're a former safety, so break it down for me from a football perspective. What kind of challenge does Russell Wilson bring to the field when you're going against him on Sunday?
Well, you just think about his anticipation. Now, Russell's not, a really big quarterback. He has large hands and he has a cannon for an arm. And for me, I like the anticipation, throwing into tight windows, the mobility, getting outside of the pocket, creating more opportunities for a guy like Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler when he comes back. And you got 2 big, strong wide receivers outside in Tim Patrick and Courtland Sutton. So now this looks great for Russell. Let's go back. I mean, Mike, you talked about, the Broncos playing against Seattle, and obviously we know what happened with the Broncos in that game. But think about the weapons that Russell Wilson was throwing to at that time. And when we look at the Broncos, you look at special teams. That's the one thing that has been a major problem to as well, besides special teams. So I'm thinking, when Russell was in Seattle, he had Percy Harvin. Who can be that guy for us? Can, KJ Hamler be that guy? Can Jerry Jeudy be that guy? But I'm going to say go out in free agency and get a guy by the name of Cordarrelle Patterson. If you go get this guy, he actually adds to that wide receiver room because he's a veteran, but he helps us flip the field on special teams. So there's so many things that George Paton can now do, even though he doesn't have Aaron Rodgers. He has Wilson.
Yeah, I like Cordarrelle Patterson because when you talk about him, he's a guy who not only could be a running back, but a wide receiver as well. So someone who's a dual threat. I'm interested, though. Who's the biggest guy on offense who's smiling the most right now? I'm thinking one Jerry Jeudy. Who you got?
Well, yes, of course, Jerry Jeudy. When we found out earlier today that Aaron Rodgers was going back to the Green Bay Packers, Jerry Jeudy tweeted somewhat of a downtrodden face, right? But then all of a sudden, hours later, you hear this news about one Russell Wilson, and I'm sure that frown turned upside down. So the happiest person on the Broncos offense is definitely Jerry Jeudy.
Yeah, Jerry tweeting just a couple hours after he tweeted that frown upside down. We lit now with the fire emoji. So, Nick, he is absolutely loving that. Justin, it was funny. You and I were texting back and forth earlier this afternoon when we found out we were going to be doing this special. And you said, hey, you know what? Finally, the Broncos have a quarterback.
Yes.
Nick, the realistic expectation here now is the Broncos used to be a team that, hey, it would be nice if they made the playoffs. Now, I think the thought is, hey, look, they're not only going to make the playoffs, but they've got Super Bowl aspirations. You have them second in their division right now behind Kansas City, and I totally agree with you. They got to beat the Chiefs first. But do you agree that this is the thing that not only puts them over the hump, but now puts them into position to be a serious Super Bowl contender?
Well, yeah, that's one thing that changes the narrative and the conversation about the Broncos, because when you talked about the Broncos over the past couple of years, it was the Broncos who, but now you can start talking about the Broncos as being a Super Bowl contender. Now, don't get me wrong. Let's not put them in the Super Bowl right away. They still have to go out and fill those gaps as far as right tackle and then build some other pieces around the team, linebacker, edge rushers. Von Miller even said yesterday, hey, will they give me back my number? If I'm George Payton, I'm calling Von Miller and say, can we get you back for 2 years? Can we do that? Can we get it done?
I want to know how Von found out yesterday that this trade was going to happen, right? That's
While
the big
on
question.
vacation.
Exactly.
I do have a question. When Peyton Manning came here, in 4 years, the Broncos went to 2 Super Bowls. Obviously, they won the AFC West every year that Peyton was here. What are the realistic expectations for Russell Wilson?
Well, I mean, sky's the limit. Let's be totally honest. I mean, when Russell was with Seattle, they were always in contention until, this past couple of years. But he was been to the Super Bowl twice. He won one. All they had to do is hand the ball over to Marshawn Lynch. That's 2 Super Bowl victories. So when I look at the fact of where the Broncos are right now and could be with a guy like Russell Wilson, that takes this team to a whole different level. So, yeah, I'm really ecstatic and happy about the move right now. And this is kind of everything is looking up for the Denver Broncos right now. But George Payton, he's got to go out. He's got to go out and add more guys to this roster. But I like what they've done so far.
Well, Nick, we got to bring in somebody else who knows a little bit about the secondary as well. 2-time Super Bowl champion, my brother, Ray Crockett. What's going on, man? How you doing?
What's up, brothers? How's it going?
Hey, we're feeling good. First question right off the bat. Where were you when you heard the news, and what was your reaction?
Man, I was at the house, actually, when I heard the news, but I kind of knew something was going on. I have a little birdie in hand in Seattle. That's a good friend of mine that kind of told me something was going to happen. So I kind of knew it yesterday a little bit, but I wasn't sure if it was going to get done or not. I didn't want to be Adam Schefter and put it out there before that. I didn't want to have to go back and start saying, wait. I thought, so I just said I'll wait.
Hey, Ray, I don't want to sit here and say that this is necessarily a better deal and get into comparisons for Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson. But in your mind, when I look at this, I see Russell Wilson's 33, right? He's talked about wanting to play into his 40s, maybe into his 5 years of age. Aaron Rodgers, on the other hand, is 38. I think I like this deal a little bit better than I maybe would have if it had been for Aaron Rodgers.
Well, I definitely like it better, to be honest. I mean, let's just be real about this thing here. I mean, the Denver Broncos is up for sale right now. And with that being said, they need a franchise quarterback probably for years to come, not just for a couple of years. And with Aaron Rodgers, who knows? I mean, Aaron Rodgers have already hinted to he may retire in the next year or 2 years after, so you can't be really sure as to what he was going to do in the future. At least Russ has been on record saying he wants to play, another 6 to a decade, kind of like the Tom Brady thing. He wants to keep playing. So with that being said, it's a better deal. And then also think about this. Aaron Rodgers wants to get paid or wanted to get paid right now. Mm-hmm. Now, yes, granted, we're going to have to pay Russell Wilson. So the owner's going to have to be ready in 2 years to probably pay Russell 50 or 55 or whatever it is a year. But Aaron wanted to get paid now. So with those things being said, and then Aaron is a different cat. Mm-hmm. I mean, with everything that's gone on this past offseason, with the COVID and all the stuff that he lied about, I mean, he's a different cat. And I don't know if you really want him as the face of the franchise right now.
What type of offense will the Broncos run? Obviously, we know Nathaniel Hackett wants to run the West Coast system, and you have Javonte Williams in the backfield. You have a slew of guys, obviously, at the wide receiver position. But what type of offense and how successful do you think Russell Wilson will be in this particular offense?
I mean, I think he'll be very successful. I mean, the thing you have to think about is that if you look at Hackett and the things he did with Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson is capable of doing those things. Now, I think Russell Wilson is going to have to stop some of the ad-libbing. He's going to have to be a little more under control, than he was the last couple of years in Seattle. But let's look at the true nature of the fact is that he had to do some of those things because their offensive line sucked in Seattle the last couple of years. So he had to run backwards and turn flips and do 15 circles to get the ball off and create more time. Hopefully we can get our line fixed and get the tackle position together, and he won't have to ad-lib as much. But as far as getting the ball out on time, as far as being smart enough to break down the defense and know exactly where the ball needs to go against every defense, he's capable. And as far as arm strength, I think he's capable of that as well. Now, yes, granted, would you like a guy that's a little taller? Probably. Yeah, but who knows? I mean, at this point, Russell has proven that he can do all the things that he needs to do and be a franchise quarterback. And like I said, going back to what I said about the league and about the Broncos being sold right now, Russell fits the mode of the quarterbacks we've had, the legacy quarterbacks we've had in the past. And what I mean by that is he's all the 3 C's that John and that Peyton was. He's confident enough, he's cool enough, and he's corny enough to be the Denver Broncos franchise quarterback. All 3 of those guys are those 3 C's, and he's all 3 of them.
Well, and they've been looking for a guy who can come in and bring some stability to that position, especially from a leadership role as well. Ray, hang out with us for a little bit. Nick, I know you're still on the line, but I also want to bring in Chris Francis, who's joining us from Seattle. He's the sports director at the CBS affiliate there. And, as they say, there are 2 sides to every story. So Broncos country is over here rejoicing. You see what the Seahawks tweeted out today. I want to bring in Chris now. Chris, your thoughts on how this trade today is being digested, if you will, in Seattle?
Well, you guys are doing backflips there in Denver. We are crying in our beer here. I mean, that is just the way it is. My 4-year-old, he doesn't even understand it, and he's like, "Wait a minute, no blue and green, blue and orange." Well, he doesn't understand. But yeah, I mean, listen. Ray hit the nail on the head. I mean, Nick too. You guys are getting a franchise quarterback, not just a franchise quarterback, a Hall of Fame quarterback. What he has done in the first 10 years of his career here in Seattle, just phenomenal. I mean, obviously, I think only second in some categories to Peyton Manning. So just a phenomenal, not just quarterback on the field, do it all, live, eat, breathe football, but in the community here as well. I mean, listening to you guys talk, I mean, it makes it hit even harder because I'm thinking now, what are the Seahawks going to do? I mean, what are they going to do? There's no franchise quarterback. What are they doing?
You got Drew Lock coming, Chris. What are you talking about?
I mean, hey, y'all got the division on lock.
I mean, the thing is now you can build some things. You can, a bunch of draft picks they didn't have before. And maybe it was the right time to trade Russell because you're going to get all this stuff for him. But there's a giant crater here in Seattle where Lumen Field was, and it's going to be a trip to see what happens this offseason and this season coming up. I think we're in for a few tough years. That's all I think.
Chris, I'm curious. Obviously, you've been covering Russell Wilson for his career, but what type of guy is he off the field? We all know the things that he's done on the field, 2 Super Bowls that he's appeared in, 1 Super Bowl championship over the Broncos. We don't have to talk about that, but what type of guy is he off the field? What are Broncos fans getting?
Well, Ray already brought up the handoff to Marshawn, so we got to talk about some of the Broncos Super Bowl. Yeah, I mean, and the 3 C's is right. I mean, and especially that last one, he's kind of a corny guy. I mean, he is. There's the Robot Russ. That's what everybody says about Robot Russ, but he's like that all the time. I mean, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a guy, like I mentioned, that's going to live, eat, and breathe football. I mean, he is going to dedicate himself to game plans for other players and just he's there, for the 4 a.m. to midnight guy, sleep, no time to sleep. That's one of his slogans, no time to sleep. Separations in the preparation. Yeah, he has all the slogans. He says all the right things. I will say from a media perspective, you guys are going to hate the press conferences because they're all the same. Every week they're the same. Every single week they're the same. I can plug in sound bites from 2 years ago. They'll be the same. It's just, but I mean, he's the nicest guy. He just does so much in the community. every Tuesday for 10 years. He's been visiting Children's Hospital here in Seattle. Hopefully he does some of that on Zoom when he's gone. I mean, he opened a school here. I mean, I could take a half hour and talk about all the things he's done in this town. He put Seattle sports on the map. I mean, he put the Seahawks, along with Pete Carroll, he put the Seahawks and the Legion of Boom, they put the Seahawks on the map.
Oh,
they really,
yes.
Yeah, of course, Ray, the defensive guy popping in. Okay, no, we can't forget about the
I was
Legion of
just
Boom.
about to say that as well. I was about to say that. Now, let's
top
not
5
forget.
all-time defense.
Yes, let's not forget when Russell had his best years and when he was competing and winning Super Bowls, that defense was held to bear. So you definitely have to have something that is like that in Denver. I mean, Denver has a good defense, but not the Legion of Boom, and you have to play complementary football with Russell. You don't want him, especially at this time of his career, you don't want him out there ad-libbing and trying to play hero ball and making every play. You want to give him some extra possessions with your defense. And we have some guys in that backfield, but we definitely have to get better and play better complementary football for Russell.
Hey, Nick Ferguson, I want to bring you back into this conversation. Nick, let's talk about the guys that the Broncos sent to Seattle. We mentioned Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and Shelby Harris in there as well as part of this deal. What do you think the Broncos are going to miss on the field from those guys moving forward?
Well, Noah Fant came in as a top-rated tight end. So we talk about his potential. We didn't really see it, and it's the full gamut of his talent coming out of Iowa. So you lose that element of it, but you still have Albert Okwuegbunam. Hopefully the team signs Eric Salbert back, but there is a bevy of young talent in his draft playing that tight end position. A lot of those guys are going to be pushed down to the mid to late rounds. The Broncos will still be able to acquire guys. Shelby Harris, a leader in that locker room. He was one of those linchpin guys, and Ray could talk about it because he played with guys like that on that defensive line, a guy sort of like Alfred Williams who had that attitude and that swagger to get guys going. So you lose Shelby, but the defensive line has been an issue for the Broncos as well as the quarterback. So I'm thinking in free agency, how about linking up Russell with a former teammate who is currently with the Kansas City Chiefs, Jaron Reed? How about replacing Shelby with that guy?
Like
now
that.
you make your interior defensive line that much better.
And then you also have other moves that they need to make too, Nick. And I'm thinking of offensively. We talk about right tackle. They got to do something there. They don't have anybody signed right now. Do you go back and re-sign Bobby Massey, or do you go into the draft or even free agency and pick somebody? And if you do, I know you talk with Cecil Lammy a lot on 104.3 The Fan. Who's the right tackle that the Broncos could be targeting?
Well, Justin, you do both. You go out and get a free agent right tackle, but you also go grab a guy who you can develop and a guy waiting in the wings. And for me, my guy, I don't know how you guys feel about it, but a guy who I spent some time around coaching for the 49ers, Trent Brown. He's a massive man. He can run the gap system. He can run the zone system. And the idea is Russell's had problems with protection. You get a right tackle who can just shut things down to go with the development of Garrett Bowles. Now we are in business.
Hey, Ray, I want to bring you back in on this thought. And we talked about Russ and what he did in Seattle. 8 years they made the playoffs in his 10 seasons there. From a locker room perspective, when he comes in, what do you think that does? And what does this message send to the rest of those guys inside the locker room? Oh, I think we might have lost Ray there. Nick, I'll bring you in on that. If you're a Broncos player and you weren't involved in this trade, but you see George Paton, and I don't think you can call it a miss on Aaron Rodgers because Aaron did what he did. Yeah. But then you see your GM go out and make a swing like this and hit a home run and get Russell Wilson. What message does that send to the rest of the guys inside that locker room?
Not that you really need it, but every guy should rededicate themselves this offseason. Now you officially turn the page. Whatever happened with Drew Lock, Teddy Bridgewater, and Vic Fangio, that's water under the bridge. Now it's time to really move forward. And we probably will see a lot of guys deciding, okay, where's Russ going to be this offseason so we can get there to start working out with him? And to me, guys, here's something that we never really talk about when a guy moves from place to place. It is, what does it mean for the Denver economy knowing as though Russell is coming here? There is going to be a boom. Like if you look at the stadium last year, I mean, you saw a lot of empty seats. You're not going to see that now. And then also, when you say, well, what jersey was the number one seller? We don't know, but we know what's going to be the number one seller now. It is a Russell Wilson jersey.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
You know, one thing I do see with the Broncos coming up this year, Nick, is that they will have the weakest schedule in the division. Obviously, they had the last place team last year. What record are we looking at for this team? And in order for them to get there, get back to the playoffs, what do they have to do?
Well, I'm going to go off the bat and say giving them 11 wins. Now, could they go to 12 and 13? Possibly, but I just want to temper the expectations just a little, because I don't know exactly what are the moves that George Paton's are going to make in free agency. So, but with a guy like Russell and the wide receiver options, I got to give him at least 11 wins to start off.
I think that's a good number, Nick. I think it has to be at least double digits. Hey, Chris, are you still with us on the other side of this? All right, I'm going to take that as a no. Ray, have you rejoined us yet? Part of the fun of doing Zoom. So it's just the three of us.
Well, you know, it's interesting. It's kind of like how the Broncos quarterback situation has been, right?
A revolving door?
A revolving door. And then you got to settle on one guy. We settled with Nick. We started with Nick. We end with Nick.
Nick, you're our Russell Wilson, man. We appreciate you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me.
Hey,
go Broncos!
And before we get out of here, Nick, tell people how they can hear you tonight and every weeknight with Cecil Lammey.
Oh, that is easy. Every night on 104.3 The Fan, you can catch me and Cecil Lammey going down. Hey, pulse of the people tonight on the show. We want to hear from you, Broncos country, as we break everything down associated with Russell Wilson in this trade.
I get a feeling the text line and the phone lines are going to be buzzing tonight at 104.3 The Fan. Nick, thanks so much for hanging out with us, and thank you for joining us for our special Broncos report right here on CBS News Colorado. Remember, we will keep you up to date on all the latest Broncos news right here online and on CBSDenver.com.
And don't miss a thing. Make sure to get your app by scanning the QR code on your screen right now. We're going to give you a little time. Go and scan that code.
And that's going to do it for us, for all of our guests today, for Nick Ferguson, Ray Crockett, and Chris Francis joining us from Seattle, and for my partner in crime, Justin Adams, hanging out with me today. Appreciate you joining us, and we will see you on CBS4 News at 5 o'clock.